Coca-Cola, the brand that went from a small Atlanta-based company in 1886 to a multi-billion-dollar corporation with a product sold all across the globe. A product that, according to Coca-Cola, is the second most understood term in the world behind OK. Coca-Cola, a company that has penetrated virtually every country in the world and is the paradigm of American corporate diplomacy. Though over 70% of Coca-Cola's business income is generated from non-U.S. sources, Coke still identifies as a patriotic American product because the globalization of Coke was in part aided by the United States government. As Coca-Cola expanded their profits as a global corporation, they used their alignment with the military to expand their global infrastructure. Coca-Cola endeavored to reinvent its brand as a cosmopolitan, global product, although that proved to be especially challenging because of the company's historical efforts to position itself as part of the American way of life. Coke's incredible worldwide expansion as a model of American corporate globalization is in many ways due to Coca-Cola's success as an American product during World War II, when the company carried out a diplomatic effort to expand around the world. Coke's president at the time, Robert Woodruff, worked to make Coca-Cola available to all U.S. military personnel for only 5 cents. In 1940, General Dwight Eisenhower requested a shipment of 3 million filled bottles of Coca-Cola and the equipment and materials for filling 20,000 bottles per day. The Coca-Cola Company and the U.S. government then sent an employee to Algeria to begin carrying out the project. Within 6 months, the first plant opened, the forerunner of 64 bottling plants shipped abroad during World War II. The plants were set up as close as possible to combat areas in Europe and the Pacific. More than 5 billion bottles of Coke were consumed by military service personnel during the war, in addition to countless servings through dispensers and mobile self-contained units in battle areas. Through the war, Coca-Cola was able to introduce itself to new countries with eager buyers. By the 1960s, Coca-Cola had amassed a presence in over 110 countries, and this earned not only Coca-Cola, but America a presence around the world. After the war, Coke symbolized the United States in its consumer capitalist way of life. Since Coke presented itself as such an all-American product, a country's political orientation towards the United States was key in the acceptability of Coca-Cola in that region. Quote, "We must call a spade and label Coca-Cola for what it is, the avant-garde of an offensive aimed at economic colonization, against which we feel it's our duty to struggle," insisted a neutralist Catholic newspaper. French newspaper Le Monde concurred. What the French criticized is less Coca-Cola than its orchestration, less the drink itself than the civilization, or as they like to say, the style of life of which it is a symbol. Coke being an important American symbol wasn't perceived as negative in all cases. When Coca-Cola began to grow in Mexico after the war, the company tried to portray itself as a distinctly Mexican product, which elevated it to new heights. In addition to that, Coca-Cola's inherent Americanness was appealing to Mexicans, and that it symbolized American wealth, and more importantly, happiness.
Coca-Cola was successful, Coca-Cola was colorful, Coca-Cola was American, Coca-Cola represented wealth, represented the U.S., represented for a lot of people happiness, right? Forgetting about your job, forgetting about things, drinking some cold Coke represented a moment of happiness.
In diplomatic efforts to enhance international relations and marketing campaigns, Coca-Cola worked to promote itself in every corner of Mexico. By painting the famous Coke logo on the walls of small shops and corner stores for free, Coke created an image of itself that represented it as a local product.
When you're going to start a small business in Mexico, small store, like selling groceries, but like kind of like a corner store basically, you can contact Coca-Cola and they will pay for you to have chairs, tables. They will paint the outside of your store with big signs of Coca-Cola, give you some money to paint the store, give you some money to buy some chairs. It's all Coca-Cola branded, right, of course. But to people that means home, it doesn't mean foreign American company, which just goes on to show the extent of influence of Coca-Cola as a company in the local politics and diplomacy of Mexico, Latin American countries in relation to the U.S. It's a foreign company that is almost local in a sense. That's a success.
Through this, Coca-Cola managed to further increase its outreach and popularity. This corporate diplomacy was an effort by the company to become a keystone of Mexican culture, and to achieve a new identity in Mexico. During the 1960s, Coca-Cola delivery worker Vicente Fox worked hard to spread Coca-Cola throughout Mexico. Fox rose in ranks and eventually became the head of Coca-Cola Mexico. His efforts to popularize Coke were very successful, and through diplomacy, Coca-Cola launched strong marketing campaigns in Mexico soon after. In the late 1960s and early 70s, Coca-Cola gained enough traction to sponsor the Mexico City Olympics and the World Cup, which gave it the opportunity to reach an international audience. By positioning themselves with these huge, well-received events, Coke was using the diplomacy of sport to further connect with their Mexican audience. The 90s brought more change to the soda industry with the passage of the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. The diplomatic fruition of this agreement essentially eliminated most trade barriers between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. NAFTA allowed Mexico and the United States' economies to connect more than ever before. The Coca-Cola Company gained from this because NAFTA permitted higher prices and larger package sizes of Coke. NAFTA also made Coke cheaper and facilitated the company's rapid growth in Mexico. More diplomatic efforts took place when Coca-Cola sponsored Vicente Fox's early presidential campaign in the year 2000. As a result, Coke sales boomed during his presidency. Coke's wide popularity came with a huge problem: diabetes. From 2000 to 2007, the diabetes rate doubled in Mexico, causing many officials to push back against Coke. In response to this, the Mexican government released a variety of non-communicable disease policies, or NCDs, that Coca-Cola continued to obstruct in order to target consumers for the sale of their products. Coca-Cola's government influence allowed them to sway NCD policy agenda. The government proposed marketing regulations over sugary soda products that in the end were never adopted due to Coke's tremendous influence. In 2010, a policy was introduced that would prevent the sale of soft drinks in schools, but never materialized due to forceful opposition from the soda industry. Coke sponsored conferences and researchers that worked to downplay the role of sugar in health problems and had power over many government panels on fighting obesity. Vicente Fox's previous ties with Coca-Cola further enabled Coke to influence public health policy during his presidency.
Nowadays, there's huge campaigns to try to raise awareness of the risks, health risks, in Coca-Cola being having so much sugar and, in a sense, deceiving people by engaging in campaigns that emphasize Coca-Cola as trendy, hip, cool, and not exactly being an incredibly unhealthy drink.
Coke's vehement opposition was a barrier that the company was able to conquer. The genius of Coca-Cola's social and political marketing strategies allowed the company to embed itself in local culture and economy that made it hard to eradicate.
People think of Coca-Cola as modernization, progress, success. There are other options in Mexico. There's many other things one can drink, right? For an evening dinner or for pleasure, and yet people choose Coca-Cola because they think it means modernity. It means the future. It means being American, which is equated with being developed, wealthy. It means progress. It means money. So I think for people, it's a way to leave behind for a minute at least the limits of where they find themselves. Whether it's a poor country, a poor city, poor town, it's a way to kind of acknowledge the power and influence of the United States in Mexico.
Through political, corporate, and cultural diplomacy, Coca-Cola succeeded in achieving widespread popularity and huge profits. By entering global markets as a symbol of American wealth and happiness, and aligning themselves with the American government and army, Coca-Cola created an image that penetrated minds all across the globe.
A lot of what we were exposed to in terms of American values or American culture comes from adverts from Coca-Cola, right? Like the Christmas scenes, the family scenes, the big houses with the backyards, and people having barbecues outside drinking Coca-Cola.
Coke endeavored to appeal to audiences by adapting to new locations and presenting itself as a local product, which gave it its enormous influence today. Coke faced challenges and received pushback, but its globalization was a huge diplomatic success.